Greetings, everybody. How you doing today? Hope you're having a great day, considering we're all still stuck at home. Hopefully, we're out doing some hiking and things of that nature, and cooking. Cooking is a great thing to do. Anyhow, just wanted to go over quickly as possible, at least, your final project that's coming up. And basically, this is a project that we need to prep for. So this is the first week of prep to make sure we get our heads around the concepts of recipes and what kind of recipes we want to create. So I'm going to share the screen with you and get the final project up on the screen here for y'all. So there you go. There's the final project. This is going to be, obviously, it's if you're watching this, you already realize it's linked to this week's assignments, as well as I'm going to drop this into the final project assignment, as well as just so you can have it there in two different places in case. Anyhow, so the final project that I want to put together here for you is it's our guidelines, planning, and samples. So just as in a nutshell, let's just get right into it so we don't take too much time. I don't take too much of your time, and you can read through this as well. So I'm going to enlarge this a bit so you can see it a little bit closer, a little bit better. I hope you can see that a little bit better. Let me just fix it. So here we go. Our sustainable project. Obviously, it's Sustainable Hospitality 24. Students will create the basic components of a recipe and transcribe them, type in other words, a full recipe onto a sheet of paper for a final dish photo. So this will be accompanied with your final full photo that we're going to put into a cookbook. So make sure it's a good photo. Use your, your camera, your phone camera, what have you. Do the best you can, and it will be submitted for grading, tasting, and class cookbook. The tasting, obviously, I will not be able to do. I'll have to hope that you've tasted it. If you want, you can have someone else taste it and give their opinion on it to make sure you feel comfortable dropping this onto a cookbook, okay? Remember, whatever you create, someone else is going to try to create as well. This activity engages student chefs to think critically about the sustainable parts and steps of creating an entire meal. An entree meal is what you're doing here, and hones recipes and cooking organizational skills. After students write the full recipe, they will make and sample the meal together as a class. Again, we can't do that, so you'll have to sample with a family member or friend, etc. The goal is to focus on content organization, chronology, and accuracy as part of understanding the fundamentals of writing and using a recipe to cook with. So think about how you're writing this recipe. You have the ingredients, but you need to write down how a person's going to be able to use those ingredients. So your instructions are huge, okay? So following these guidelines, so let's just get right into the guidelines, okay? Sustainable meaning, try to keep it local if you can, local stuff, things that are local, maybe local fish, anything that you feel, even though it's not native, but if it's local, let's use it. Monterey Jack cheese is very local. Maybe you'll create something like that, who knows? Anyway, since the principal function of the recipe writing is to communicate to the cook trying to replicate the recipe. Huge, huge, huge. It is important to have a clean photo and clear instructions of the recipe, ingredients, and a clear statement of why this is a great sustainable option to make as a meal. So in the cookbook, there's going to be a statement that, I chose to use Monterey Jack cheese because Monterey is where this cheese was created, so it's indigenous to the area. I don't know, anything like that. I chose to use salmon because salmon is within the region of our sustainability, meaning region meaning California, Oregon, and Washington. So that would be a region. You could say California region as well, which brings it just into California. Sustainable statement. So we just talked about that. Read into it. Try to work on that as time goes by. This is preparation for the 2-hour class. If we were doing a class, you would have had to have all this stuff ready for you. Preparing the plate, having all the mise en place ready. Some people would come in earlier and get their mise en place ready before the 2-hour class. This you would be doing at home. So you would have to show me pictures of you, just like you've been doing in the past. But this time, try to have your mise en place, a picture of your mise en place and how you're going about this, okay? So that would be nice to see that you're actually taking advantage of those simple steps to make it easier for yourself. Okay, so that was page 1. So walk through each and every component of your recipe. I encourage you to organize and lay out the recipe in a way that is easy to follow, such as the list, as with lists and numbers. Keep in mind that you have 1 page available for the cookbook for your final recipe photo and statements submittal. Obviously some recipes take more than 1 page. If it flows into a second page, it is what it is. But if you can organize this in a way that we can have it in 1 page, that'd be great. I'm going to try to get a format for you to use by the end of this, by next week, so you can have a format to work with. So everybody's on the same format and make it a lot easier for me to drop it onto a cookbook as well. All right, so the title, what are you making? The ingredients, how many servings, time need to prepare, materials needed, directions or steps, what qualifies this as sustainable? That's all you really need to think about as far as your final recipe is concerned. Make sure you take detailed notes. Don't just start cooking and then you forgot how you did it. All right? Have a pad with you and write down your ingredients, how you use the ingredients, and cook it. And as you taste, you may make changes. So make notes of those changes. You may want to put an extra teaspoon of salt, or maybe salt to taste at the end before serving. I don't know. You have to make those decisions on your recipe. Okay, so make sure you take the time to have detailed tips and steps. All right. Prepare a table of ingredients, excuse me. So you know what that is, your ingredient list. Make sure you have ingredients in order. Don't just throw them here, there, and anywhere. Kind of keep them in order. It helps the person who's trying to recreate your recipe. Keep it organized. Take the time to organize this. This is why we're talking about this now. This final recipe isn't due until the 27th. So you're talking basically a little under 4 weeks from now. So, but it's a lot of work to make sure that you have it in a position where other people can recreate it. So take a look at this and keep reading through it. Make directions clear and specific. Keep your writing concise. Avoid long sentences, unnecessary jargon. Your reader should be able to glance at the recipe and easily see what comes next in the cooking process. Wherever possible, give exact times and measurements. Leave an additional note if possible for variations, advanced cooking techniques, or for the end of the recipe. I would like to point out that it's an excellent idea to have a second pair of eyes. Huge. Have someone else read it. After you read it backwards from the bottom up, then have someone else read it to make sure that there isn't any mistakes, okay? So a chef should be able to write recipes with focused directions, and even a novice can follow. Practicing your writing skills can make a huge difference in communicating your ideas to fellow culinary professionals and building your reputation. Please try to use ingredients that we can find that are, don't put an ingredient like truffles truffles are very hard to find out here. They're very seasonal. So if you do find them, they're going to be very expensive. Truffle oil might be a little bit less, expensive and easier to find perhaps at, Whole Foods or somewhere in that nature. So think about that. Your rough submittal, all recipes must be submitted during week 16. So your final recipes, I must see them before 17, all right, to ensure that, that you have had a second eye and the recipe accuracy, and also gives me an opportunity to look it over too, see if I notice any discrepancies as well before you cook it and turn it in. So that's, your finished rough submittal. All right, basically this is the recipe you're gonna cook, even though it says rough submittal. Next week really is your rough submittal, the next couple of weeks where you're working on it, okay? But usually they say rough submittal in a lot of areas of cookbooks, because that's the final, before it goes into print and before people start cooking it, okay? So let's go to the next slide. I don't know which slide we're on here, which one are we on, that one. So let's go on this slide. So here, go up, a little picture in there, I don't know what. Let me just go up here. I don't know why this is not letting me go up. My computer's slowing down for some reason, but let me just reduce the size. Maybe it'll make it faster. There we go. There it is. I don't know what that problem was. All right, I think it was a little too large. There we go. So this one here, obviously, you're gonna send the recipe rough before the weekend of the 16th. Chef will choose some recipes for the class during the Kitchen 16. So basically, from day one, starting next week, if you send me a recipe that you want me to try out or buy the ingredients and let the students try out, I'll do that. But I need it before my shopping day, which is on May 5th coming up. So if you choose to have a recipe that you would like me to do, and I'll pick whoever sends me a recipe and see if we could do a quick video on it and see how it comes out. So it's up to you to do that. I don't know how quickly you can come up with your ideas, but it's up to you at that point. So keep that in mind. Week 17 is coming up. And then let's look at the last one again. This next one, I'm going to bring down the size because it's really moving slow. So planning for this week coming up this week, okay? You're working on this week. Work on your recipe ideas and concepts. This must be your recipe concept, i.e. perhaps a deconstructed French onion soup. I don't know. I just made that up. Sounds interesting. Maybe, you'll have the bread and then the onions on top of it with the soup around it and some cheese, shredded cheese on the top, or just whatever. So present them for review and questions. Keep it simple. Think about mise en place, which includes ingredients and finish plating. If you have a concept turned in before my shopping on May 5th, I might choose to cook it for the class. If I have a few of them, I'll choose someone's for the class. So keep that in mind. And then I dropped a couple of samples. I'll keep dropping samples from week to week. Here's a sample of this person's here where you can enlarge it. Let's just enlarge it so you can see what I mean. So you can I'll drop it there, enlarge it so you can see the recipe, the full recipe. It'll go down and you can just check out the full recipe. But it gives you an idea of what I'm trying to talk about. Let me enlarge it this way. So you can see how you start getting all the instructions as you enlarge it. But anyhow, I will probably in the next class actually add the current cookbook that we have, so you could see other students and what they did. But meanwhile, let's start getting your ideas together. Check out some of these samples. I'll start sending more and more samples. Certainly, if you asked me for more samples, I'll try to send some. Here we have a pizza. They called it a pizza chicken, where they took a chicken breast and they made it into a pizza. So they halved it, pounded it a little bit, cooked it, and cooked it as if it was a piece of pizza. So it's a thin chicken as the crust. Very interesting idea, huh? Hey, everybody has their ideas. So just so to get your brains going, all right? So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Let me know what you think. You have my email. You have my text. You have several emails, actually. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions on this. We're getting started. And believe it or not, May is this week, so we're already going to be working through our first week of May. All right. Good luck. We'll talk to you soon. First, I'm going to actually stop the share, and then we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.